today we're going to be talking on this tape about mental power. Mental power. Now, you know, in this series of tapes on this Total Life Power series, we have the spiritual power of man. That's that halo around my head. If you don't see it, you don't have one, so you wouldn't recognize it. And then you have your mental power, your emotional power, your physical power, and your financial power on HIP National down here, or your purse, ladies, for you. Now, what we're going to do is talk about the power of the mind and how powerful it is and what you can do with it. Now, you've got to educate the mind. Education is not always in grammar school, in high school, and college. We're talking about education is the sum total of your experience, good and bad, makes you capable of producing things you need to carry you through this life in a successful manner to provide the necessary things for your family and yourself. Now, I guess one of the things you have to work on is your intelligence. Intelligence reminds me of a story I heard about two fellows down in the ditch, digging a ditch one time. And they were down there just shoveling away, man. And I mean, they were fussing about working too hard, and they wasn't making no money much. And the boss man was sitting up in the shade, cooling, drinking a little soft drink. And one guy asked the other, and he says, "You reckon, why is he up there cooling? We're down here sweating it. What does he know that we don't know?" The guy said, "I don't know." Said, "When we find out, maybe we can be a foreman one day and we can set the shade." So one guy got up the nerve. He drug himself out of the ditch. He goes up to the boss man and said, "Hey, boss man, can I talk to you?" He said, "Yeah, go ahead and make it fast, or you need to get back in the ditch and shovel that dirt." He said, "How come we down there sweating, shoveling in the hot sun, you up here cooling in the shade?" The boss man said, "Well, it's a matter of intelligence." He said, "Intelligence, what's that?" He said, "You don't know what intelligence is?" He said, "No, I sure don't." He said, "I want you to do me a favor." So he says, "Ball up your fist as hard as you can." And he laid his fist upside this tree, this big old pine tree. He said, "I want you to haul off and I want you to hit my fist just as hard as you can." He said, "It's going to hurt you bad, boss man. You ain't going to be mad, are you?" He said, "Just do what I tell you. Don't worry about it." So he hauled off and he let go, and the boss man slid his hand out and he just busted his fist right side of the tree. Sprained it bad. He said, "That's what intelligence is, son." He said, "Okay." So he goes back down the ditch and he's trying to shovel. He's got the shovel up on his arm. He's doing like that. Just doing like that. The other guy said, "What'd he say, man? What'd he say? What'd he say?" He said, "Something about intelligence." He said, "Intelligence, what's that?" He said, "You don't know what intelligence is?" He said, "No." He said, "Hit my hand." A lot of people, they never learn what intelligence is, even when you try to tell them. Intelligence is simply using the knowledge that you have accumulated through your eyes and ears all your life. What goes in the eyes and ears comes out the mouth. If you disagree with anything I'm saying on this tape or any tapes in this series, I cannot argue and criticize you for that, because if I had your intelligence, if I'd seen in my life, heard what you've heard, everything you've ever put in your mind, my thoughts about this speech would be the same as yours, good or bad. Now, I don't expect to teach anybody everything or everybody anything. I expect you to take the power of your own mind and educate it the way you are supposed to do it. Now, mental power is simple. It's a matter of putting in your eyes and ears the things that make you what you want to be in life. There's an old saying, if you continue to do what you've always done, you'll continue to be what you've always been. If you continue to think the way you've always thought, then you'll continue to have what you've already got and nothing more. I like to educate myself on this method, and I learned it when I was in the kindergarten. You see, it takes 21 days for a chicken's egg to hatch, with the help of an incubator, a hen, and Almighty God, laying out the master plan. Now, if it takes 21 days for a chicken's egg to hatch, right? How long does it take, if you change an egg to a chicken, God, that long, how long does it take these tapes to change a chicken to a man or a woman? See, if you're not happy and you're not using this mind power, you are chicken. That's just the way it is. You're scratching with the chicken, and you could be flying with the eagles. You know, eagles don't flock with the chickens. They fly high by themselves. So what you got to remember to do is the multiplication table was learned over and over and over and over again. Probably 21 more times the more you studied them. Now, if it was done that many times, that must be something right. Why did they teach us that way? What about the alphabet? Did you say it over and over and over until it was part of your brain? You would never be able to speak or write if you had to do it over and over. Now, when we get grown, we forget that lesson as a child. Someone tells us, you can make $1 million, and here's how to do it. You say, I don't believe that. I didn't understand what you're saying. That's Greek to me. Well, we're so set in our ways, we don't say, tell me again. And then the third time, tell me again. Tell me again. I say keep telling me until I know it. You can show me something and you expect me to know it. And I look at it and I don't understand it and I don't want to be dumb, so I don't say, well, I don't understand it. Will you tell it? And you say, well, I think he's got it. I didn't get it at all. Well, that's the way it is. This tape has to be listened to 21 times. 21 times. All the tapes that go with this tape, the mental tapes, there's 4 audio tapes in the beginning series, and there'll be many more later. But these tapes have to be listened to 21 times a piece. You say, that's ridiculous, man. I'm not going to listen to this tape 21 times. Well, that's the reason you probably had to buy these tapes to start with, because you don't have it already. Now, you spent good money for this tape. Use it. Milk it for all it's worth. So let's do it 21 times. 21 times, because you go to college, right? You go 4 years, right? And you hear mathematics over and over and over every day until you finally get graduated. Well, you're not going to graduate with this tape unless you listen at least 21 times. Now, I read Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, 21 times, because I didn't have any tapes when I started out many years ago. I read The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol 21 times. I read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie 21 times. And that's why when I open my mouth, it's all positive. When I open my mouth, I know how to get along with people, handle people, to sell people, to talk to people, to communicate, men or women. So what you got to do is you've got to remember, above all other things, you need to listen to any tapes you ever listen to at least 21 times. It doesn't matter if they're our tapes or not. GWT and Associates don't have all the greatest tapes in the world. We got some great tapes, but there's always somebody got something greater than us in some field. Maybe in the medical field, maybe in a different line of work. But whatever it is, if you'll follow this rule, this tape right here can be the most powerful tape you've ever got, outside of your spiritual tape, is because 21 times, you must listen to this. Then you must listen to the audio 21 times. In other words, what you're doing is you're becoming a member of what I call my hidden university. Now, what is a hidden university? This hidden university is one you don't have to pay for. This hidden university is one you don't have to drive your car every day to it. This hidden university doesn't give you a sheepskin or a rolled-up diploma or let you put on a cap and gown. The hidden university is in your own mind. It's the power within your mind. The hidden university allows you to take information and store it in your subconscious mind. Learn to use the power of the hidden university by putting this repetition over and over and over and over. You see, there's many of you out there listening to this tape that you go to seminars, like the one you probably bought this from, or you bought this from a TV commercial. And you go and go and go, and you're just a seminar junkie. I know, I used to be one. It comes a time when you have to quit looking and going and getting motivated for 2 hours because your boss paid for the seminar, and you have to put this stuff in your head. You see, if you empty a glass of water, if you don't want water, you want orange juice, you've got to empty it out before you can fill it up with orange juice. Well, your mind's the same way. And when you listen to a tape over and over and over again, like the tapes you got in this series, you're going to pretty soon, when you open your mouth, you're going to say something about the tape. Now, to give you an example, if you run around with mechanics and you hear a mechanic talk all day and all week and all month, generally when you get together, you're drinking your beer or whatever you're doing, having your social parties or your little party, you talk about hot rods, you talk about motors, you talk about cars, you talk about all these things that's in your mind, right? Well, does it make sense if you're making $20 an hour as a mechanic and you want to make $200 an hour as a salesperson, or a lawyer, or a doctor, or whatever that profession that will give you this kind of money? Doesn't it make sense that you have to start listening and living and associating with people that are telling you how the new information? Because you're not going to make it being a mechanic unless you got your own garage, maybe. And that's good. Go for your own garage if you want to be a mechanic. Nothing wrong with that. But you've got to remember, you've got to change what you look at and what you listen to, or you're never going to understand how to use the mental power. The mental power is simple. Just take out what don't work and put in what does work. Decide what you want to be. Don't decide on the amount of money it pays. Decide what your talent is. All of us have different talents. You cannot outdo me in my field. I'm the best. I cannot outdo you at something. You're the best. There's nobody in your hometown better at something than you are. You may bake a cake better than anybody else. You may want to open a bakery. You may sew a dress. You may run the fastest in your town. You may be a high jumper. You may be an athletic star of some kind. But it's something you do better than anybody else in this world. It may be a bum, but you can be the best bum there is. Be whatever it is you're supposed to be. Do not try to get disappointed in yourself mentally because someone else has something going that you don't have. If you do, you're going to be a square peg in a round hole. Learn to use the mental power. Learn to use the mind to train it by repetition, 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 repetition. Promise me that you will listen to this tape 21 times. You should listen to it 21 times before you listen to the first audio tape that goes this series, but you won't. Let me tell you why I know most of you won't. And that's why only 2% of the American people at the age of 65 are financially independent. 2% can be able to write a check for what they need. The rest of them are dependent on Social Security, welfare, or their sons and daughters to make a living for them. And that's sad, isn't it? Only 2%. Now, people don't start out planning to fail. They fail to plan. They don't use their mental power. We all have it. It's our God-given right. So what you got to do is you've got to train yourself again. And I'm being repetition because that's what this tape's all about. You've got to train yourself in what you want. You can stop what you're doing. Just like when your job is disappeared and you have to learn new techniques to get a new job, you set in your ways, you say, well, I don't want to do that. Sometimes when one door shuts, it's a greater door opens. And that's what you got to remember. Mental power is what it's all about. The power of the mind is awesome. The power of the mind can take a person that's not too bright and make him a wealthy man if he learns repetition. I know people that are great public speakers and they don't know how to talk from their heart. All they got is facts in their heads and they just repeat and repeat those facts. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's their talent. But me, I think that a good speech is like a love letter. You don't know how you're going to start it. You don't know how it's going to end. You simply bubble from your heart and you're sincere with it. Mental power is what we're talking about. I want to tell you a story about mental power. Let me see which one I'm going to use today. Has anybody got a suggestion here?
City where anything is possible.
The city of anything is possible. Now that's one of our associates that does our financial tapes. And he shows you why he's ready to roll, isn't he? The village of anything is possible is my favorite story. There was an old man who walked along a dusty road with cornfields on each side. As he topped the hill, he sat on a log to rest a spell. Now the hill was only a 3-foot rise and a 20-foot span. But to him, being old and crippled and leaning on a stick and had a hole in his shoe to keep out the weather, he put a piece of pasteboard in. You could tell he was once a man of means. His suit was the finest ever made, tailored in fact. But then you could tell also that he hadn't eaten since God knows when. The old man had a pair of bifocals on. His hair had long gone, a little left around the side. And he sat on this log, and he saw a little lad sitting next to him. And he looked at the lad and says, "My friend, can you tell me where an old man can beg his supper tonight?" He says, "Yes, sir, in the village below that you passed through, sir." "Village?" said the old man. "I saw no village." But he turned and he looked. And sure enough, where he just passed through was a brand new village. It looked like it was made thousands of years ago in the architectural design. But it smelled of fresh paint as if it had been put there just a moment ago. He looked and he puzzled, but he was hungry and his stomach was growling. He had no time to analyze it. He said, "Boy, what's the name of the village so that when I go down there I can sound intelligent and I can talk to the good people and ask for some supper?" And he looked at him and said, "Sir, anything is possible." He said, "Anything is possible? Maybe for you, but you see, I've traveled the world over and I've had millions and lost it all. For a young man like you, but I'm 60 years old, and don't tell me that philosophy." And he looked and he says, "I don't want the name of the village, boy. Thank you." And the boy says, "Anything is possible, sir." He said, "Boy, you've said that. Now, if you say it again, I'm going to crack you on your knuckles with this stick. Now, what's the name of the village?" "Sir, the name of the village is the village of anything is possible." "Anything is possible. How strange," said the old man. But nevertheless, he thanked the lad and wobbled down the hill to the village, and he knocked on the right side of the street at their first house, because the right side is the right side to begin anything, is it not? So a young lad opened the door with a twinkle in his eye, spry and clean and neat as he could be. And the old man looked at him. He appeared to be about 7 years old. He said, "Boy, could I beg a bite of eat for my supper?" "Oh, certainly," says he. "Come into my house, sit at my table." And the old man came in, he sat down. As an old man will, he was chopping his thumbs, waiting to eat. And the boy snapped his finger and winked his eye, and a meal appeared on that table, fit for God, with all the trimmings. Excuse me. And what happened then is the old man began to eat. He couldn't have time to argue with the boy, even though he thought it was strange. He couldn't understand what was happening. And before he put the second bite of food in his mouth, he knew of all the restaurants from Paris to L.A. and all in between, of all the cities he'd been in, this was the best gourmet meal he'd ever tasted. When he finished, he told the young lad, he said, "A boy like you can prepare a meal like this? How strange." "Oh, anything is possible," said the boy. "When you live in the village of anything is possible." And so the old man says, "There's something about you, my lad," with his feeble hands shaking. Your eyes, there's wrinkles around them, real bad." Said, you don't look like you got much more wisdom than a boy of 7. Were you always 7 years old?" "Oh, no," said the lad. "One day, I was 70, but I discovered that 0 meant nothing, and I threw it away." "Oh," said the old man, "how strange. I'd like to be 30. 30 years old, I was a man of means, man. I was a handsome fella, jet black wavy hair. Suit was pressed and clean. Didn't have to have this pasteboard to keep out the weather. My shoes were new." He said, "How could I be that kind of fella?" He said, "Well, how many days in a year?" And he says, 365. He said, "Who says there has to be? Suppose there's 430, then you'd be twice your age. And leap year, give it 2 more, right?" So he began to change the calendar the boy gave it. And by the time he reached December, he felt like a man of 30. He looked like a man of 30. Jet black wavy hair. He took off his specs and put them in his pocket. He walked out in the streets of anything is possible, a happy man of 30, a handsome devil was he. And before he reached the end of town, though, he had one little thought. An old man thinking he could be 30, how dumb, how strange. And no sooner he said it than he was a man of 60 again. He had to get a stick to lean on. His hair had gone. He had to get out his bifocals. He wandered to the top of the hill, the same old log, sat down, and he had one more thought, like most of us will. He said, "A village called anything is possible, how strange." And he turned to look, and where the village had been was a dusty old road and 2 cornfields. You see, I live in that village. It's my mind. Nothing gets in here unless it's good and pure and clean and decent. I control it. I put in what I want to produce what I need in my life. Happiness first, and then wealth and other things to follow. You can too. If you listen to these tapes 21 times a piece, all of them, God bless you. Hope to meet you in person when I'm in your area. Thank you.